Evolving digital landscape. For your business to thrive, you must adapt or die. Welcome to Marketing in the Age of AI, the podcast helping you harness the power of AI and marketing tools to revitalize and grow your business. And now here's your host, marketing expert and author of Authentic Marketing in the Age of AI, Emmanuel Rose.
Welcome to this episode of Marketing in the Age of AI. Today, I have the pleasure of talking with Adam Sroka, who is an experienced data and AI leader who are helping organizations unlock value from data by delivering enterprise-scale solutions and building high-performing data and analytics teams from the ground up. Welcome to the show, Adam. Thanks for taking time today to talk with me.
Thanks very much for having me. A pleasure.
Well, you've got a pretty good run up on this little bubble that we're experiencing right now in AI tools and marketing teams leveraging GPTs and these LLMs. What did you see in kind of the run up to this in terms of how companies were implementing AI and dynamic machine learning?
Yeah, it's really funny actually, because I am one of the few sort of data and AI influencers on LinkedIn that I think is quite reluctant and boohoos it a little bit. I think prior to LLMs and GPT taking over, like these things were already kind of happening. There were a lot of applications and use cases using natural language processing, and there were some really powerful things you could do prior to ChatGPT sort of conquering the world. But these models existed beforehand. ChatGPT just really brought it to the masses.
Sure.
I think there's a lot of potential and there's a lot of interesting use cases out there to explore, especially for marketing teams.
Well, I think it's interesting in the US, at least, the adoption rates are still light in terms of small and mid-sized businesses and even Fortune 500 companies really embracing and adopting a lot of these new tools, or even having an AI task force, for instance. So in the work that you're doing, A, what size companies are you working with, and B, how are you recommending that companies implement and integrate this newish technology into their business platforms?
So we work predominantly with energy companies across the US, EU, GB. We are enjoying having these kinds of conversations with these organizations. That's everything from small, like energy startups, through to the big household names you'll have heard of, big energy suppliers, or people developing like wind farms and things like that. And I think if you look out into the wild and you read some of the hype, it sounds like everyone's doing this and you're not. But actually, in reality, I think a lot of organizations don't understand just how much of an investment it is to do this well and do it correctly. And so we really enjoy running tightly bound POCs and proof of value exercises to enable organizations to pick maybe a simple use case, to try it, to build some of that organizational familiarity. I think fundamentally you're trying to change people's workflows, and that's never easy. But when you catch the odd thread of value that really lines up with the business case and the strategy, I think that being able to capitalize on that and move really quickly is really important. So helping organizations on that journey becomes really, really key. And it's been good fun. We've learned a lot and we're getting more efficient at it. We've got some patterns and templates that now work. Nice. So it's exciting stuff.
What are some of those smaller test use cases that you're looking to implement right now, or that you have implemented?
So early on, probably beginning of 2022, we were talking to an organization that does social monitoring in a different domain, actually, does social monitoring for like analyzing certain events and trends. And they had a really large, like hundreds and hundreds of millions of messages in their database that they'd stored. And actually for them, we found that you're taking the unstructured messiness of a social, like listening to Discord channels and listening to Reddits and news feeds and things. And they found that a really useful template was to train the model to say, right, well, I need a report in this style. These are the headers. These are the kinds of fields I need. And here's 5 or 6 examples of a really good version of that report. Then letting the model loose on that kind of messy, unstructured messaging data was really, really powerful way to summarize, not just in a kind of loose, like you find a lot of people go to ChatGPT and say, summarize this article, and it will give you like another 1,000 words to read. That's as long as the article. Whereas giving it that structure and saying, I need these headers, I need this kind of output, actually gives it a lot to work with. And that works really well as a kind of first filter pattern that we've seen. And we've applied that to other domains. It's been really successful.
Oh yeah, I love that. I love that use case, and I agree. The ability for it to crunch massive amounts of data that it would take days or weeks for humans to hand curate is phenomenal. What you can get out in an hour, if, like you said, if you write a prompt that asks for a specific summary versus what it thinks is a summary.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I mean, a lot of the tech companies or the AI companies CEOs that I've spoken to are saying, we are AI first. We're keeping humans in the loop. We're testing, implementing, innovating. Would you add anything to that sequence of activities?
Yeah, I think there's a long way to go. It's easy to kind of feel FOMO and think that you're like everyone's in front of you, but there's a long way to go. I do think it will fundamentally change the nature of work, but how, I think it's too early to tell. I think the strongest use cases are in where you're taking unstructured information and moving it to something with a structure. So whether that be trying to update a monthly report on statistics based on some sort of loose understanding of something, or generating summaries and things like that in a structured way that's more useful. I think completely replacing people's, like we're a long way off of seeing that done reliably and realistically. And I do worry that we're entering the age of what I call the infinite noise machine, where we now have so many of these services that will generate blog posts for you on the fly. And I saw a use case where this person had generated 7,500 blog posts for a new blog. They started doing really well on SEO, and it was all nonsense, really.
Yep.
And I think then the next batch of models will be trained on those blog posts, and we end up in this place where we just compress all of our knowledge into the center, and very little original thought has space to breathe. So I think there's still a lot of value in really well handcrafted messaging that's supported by a bit of editing or a bit of other opinions or different perspectives from some of these models. Using them as like a council member that's collaborating with you on a project, I think it's a lot better than using them like an intern that's going to do the project for you.
Yeah, I agree. And it also brings the role of us as professionals and subject matter experts to curate content and to recommend that curated content to people so they can get through this BS that you're talking about that was just bot driven and not at all authentic or imbued with human creativity, which is, again, we've seen this trend in marketing a couple of times in the last 20 years, right? Where we kind of can continue to try to get this spray and pray to work. If we just do enough content, something's going to stick. Well, that doesn't help your ideal client find you.
Exactly. And then like you read books like They Ask You Answer, which I think is a brilliant sort of journey through being a content driven business and how you can really be powerful and useful to your customers. I mean, you can't do that stuff if you're just regurgitating stuff that's in another 1,000 blog posts written by other people. I think showing that you have a strong stance. My own creator journey on LinkedIn, right? So I'm the guy that stopped writing blog posts when ChatGPT became popular because I got too busy. But my own journey on LinkedIn to 60,000 followers was off the back of taking pretty strong, opinionated, sometimes controversial views on things and sticking by them and making like my case for it. And yeah, you lose some friends, and it's not always great for the mental health, but that actually resonates with some people. Your audience find you, and you start to find like-minded people. And I think these kind of mass-produced like content machines aren't ever going to do that because they don't know how to take that stance or what stances are even going to resonate.
Yeah, it's an interesting philosophy. There's a certain group of people that are fundamentally trying to always find this shortcut, like and make a lot of money in their mind, right? And by using these tools instead of uh, creating value, they're just barfing these things out there. And I don't think that's why humans were created. Our job is to be creative and to use our brain and to think about things and imbue our work with our own interesting perspectives, just like what you're talking about. And just pounding away to make some more money is a short-sighted way to use the tools that we have at our disposal now.
I saw a brilliant tweet, I think, by, I can't remember the name of the woman now, but it said, "I don't want AI to generate art and write music so that I can spend more time doing the dishes and cleaning my house. I want AI to clean the dishes so I can spend more time creating art and writing music." And I just think, like, yeah, we've solved the wrong thing.
Yeah. Well, that's what was so exciting about seeing Elon's robots. I'm like, we're finally getting to a place where some of the drudgery can be replaced by a robot. So I thought that was pretty cool.
I won't hold my breath. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's always a double-edged sword, all these things.
Yeah, of course.
My concern is there an EMF that I could buy to be able to kill that thing if I need to, right? Well, Adam, tell me about some current projects that you're working on that are really interesting or exciting or cutting edge that are challenging you as a person and as a thinker.
So, generative AI themed. We did a lot with energy organizations, and optimization of energy assets is really interesting. And looking at how do you apply some of these tools and approaches to how large energy assets are traded. So huge sums of money. We're talking about like a battery that's worth $100 million being traded on the grid and making like £50,000 like revenue a day and things like that. So how do you utilize and capitalize on the modern technologies to find a new edge or find advantages for that asset? And that's a really interesting challenge. And so like mathematical optimization can come into play there, and using AI to generate some of the feedings and inputs for mathematical optimization, i.e. the constraints, has been a really successful use case. Another one that I had a brainwave in the car that I'm desperate to build is we do a lot of content ourselves and like to try and sort of help people keep up to date with where data and AI is in the energy sector. So I was in the car and I listened to the Daily Drive or AI generated Spotify playlist, which was brilliant. And it starts with like a 5-minute news update from a UK paper, and then goes into a few tracks, and then it goes into like a 5-minute like audio of a sports update, and they're recordings done by the newspaper or by like the TalkSport radio or whoever it was, but it's all in a playlist and it's in Spotify. And I thought that was really interesting because there are tools out there like 11 Labs that you can give it enough audio of yourself and it will generate audio as if you're speaking. And I thought there's a whole model here whereby you could generate some daily summaries and daily newsletters of things and then publish them as like little snippet podcasts that sound like you. And so it's definitely something I want to explore and look at from a marketing perspective, because I think it's an untapped sort of way to scale audio. Whereas, and I'm not a big fan of generating content just using these models, but if I can open up the content I do generate to other channels in ways, because like I'm not going to read your blog post whilst driving my car, hopefully.
Sure.
But if an AI could read it to me in a familiar voice, well, that might be quite interesting. That might be a way I could consume it and get access to your messaging. But your mileage may vary.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting one, especially if you're able to build a little tool that would say, look at these 3 sources, pull the summaries of these sources, read these sources in my voice, and then post it to my listeners. And that that's interesting.
think it's in
Well,
the
good.
realm of possibility. I think if a bit of engineering effort, you could build that in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, and that it would it's still, like we're saying, provide value and be curated from content sources that you can trust and that are valuable. What about where do you see things headed in the next 5 years? I mean, where do you think we're gonna end in this kind of, by 2030? What's our trajectory, you think?
So I think we're at the peak of a hype cycle, but I think the gold rush isn't going to stop. We're going to see a lot of bigger and bigger organizations go after this and try and
Yeah.
compete. We'll see it open up a little bit more, but more importantly, we'll start to see the first really innovative, like game-changing, business model changing applications start to win, because it's still early days, right? And there's
Yeah.
a million and one data and AI startups now that all do large language models, but none of them have really had enough time to win and really disrupt any industries. So I think 5 years time, we'll start to see a couple of new big tech companies. Like, I think you'll see emerging unicorns that become household names in a decade. I think we are just starting to see agent-based workflows and multi-agent workflows appear. I think OpenAI announced Swarm. I think that will open up the more advanced use cases for some of this technology to less technical people, which I think is where a lot of the creative magic might happen. But the models will get bigger, faster, they'll be able to do more stuff. I don't think we're 5 years away from the first 100% AI generated film, like blockbuster type. I think that's quite close around the corner. 4 or 5 years ago, I joked about how you could have like Marilyn Monroe or Arnold, like sort of Marilyn Monroe starring Fast and Furious 15 or whatever. Because actually,
Right.
deep fake and impersonate a voice and a likeness. What does that mean for the rights of her estate? Like, what could you license Arnie forever to be in every film? Or I think these questions will start to pop up in the creative industries, and it's going to wreak havoc on some of these creative industries, which is a real shame, because I think a lot of organizations and the public will naturally, through no fault of their own, chase where the money lies, and we could end up in a pretty nasty place for the creative industries. I do feel for people in that space.
Yeah, I agree. The creative industries are taking the big hits in terms of animators, illustrators, graphic designers. Right, they're having to leverage these tools in order to stay relevant and come up with new offers. I'm interested too with the way the agents are working and how we're having bots talking to bots to set up appointments for humans to talk, and how that environment and those processes are going to naturally, drift and leverage in a way that we still are able to meet and talk to people that we want to meet and talk to.
And I think, like, it's also, if you think about enterprise, large scale organizations, how do you make sure that's happening securely? If there's some random infosec attack vector baked into any of these processes, how do you protect for that? Like, I think doing more stuff faster with new technology isn't always the best solution. I think we do need to see careful managed rollouts of these things.
Yeah, I think one of the best solutions I heard is that some of the universities are just building sandboxes, partition spaces to be able to interact with these things and figure out what to do with it. Not bring it in, obviously, in main networks before we've solved some of these things. Of course, security is the never-ending challenge that we have without AI, right? Are you involved at all in any security projects?
Yeah, we do that. So so in the UK at least, we have for energy assets over a certain size. So if you're a nuclear power station or a big gas power station or something, you become national critical infrastructure, which means you are like a high profile target for sort of foreign malicious agents, and therefore you have really stringent security requirements. And I think it's quite funny talking to like big tech bros sometimes, because they it's all cloud first and this and that and open source technologies, but actually when you're in the weeds of a project that's national critical infrastructure, or like they're not even allowed wireless devices on site, and
Right.
there has to be an on-premise server that can be visited by the governing body and things like that. And so you very quickly get back into the weeds of really complicated, like hybrid cloud environments. So we do quite a bit of work in that space, and we can help a lot. We help organizations navigate that, because it's just really difficult if you're not geared up to understand it. You can't just go 2 feet first. And I think what we're finding is, with the advent of large language models and the peak of the hype cycle, is that exec sponsors are getting more and more excited about the potential. They are getting FOMO. They are trying to push these projects forward. So we have to do our best to remove that friction, but remove it without increasing the risk or doing stupid stuff, right?
No, I like that. That measured approach is logical and rational, but still we want to get involved and start testing and using it and seeing how we can create some innovation inside the organization. So I really appreciate your time in this conversation, Adam.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And if people want to get in touch with you, how do they reach out and find you in the world?
Yep, I'm on LinkedIn as LinkedIn/in/AE Sroka. I also run Hypercube Consulting. You can find us at We Are Hypercube on all the socials. We have our own podcast where we talk about energy sector stuff, do lots of content and events, especially for the UK. So good to speak to you. But it's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me, and have a great day.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing now what you create and what Hypercube does in the next few years, and I'd like to check in with you again at some point.
Nice.
Okay, thanks, Adam.
Thanks for listening to Marketing in the Age of AI. Be sure to subscribe wherever you heard this podcast so you never miss a future episode. Your copy of Authentic Marketing in the Age of AI is available at Amazon.com or EmmanuelRose.com. You can also connect with Emmanuel on LinkedIn.